123, rental regulations. The purpose of this is to meet with the fire prevention and building codes. Rentals don't meet these codes are dangerous to both the residents that are inside and the surrounding areas. Would anybody like to make comments? This is from last meeting. We had comments already. We made changes to the law, and now this is the revised one. So, any additional comments to this law?
Comment/question, Diana Padilla, 61 Washington Street. It was not ever explained why this rental law would only apply to houses that are rented or people who rent rooms out of their house, but not apply to illegal apartments that are all over the community. So could someone explain why this does not apply to those?
Because that will be a different law. This law is only addressing the stuff that's legal in the village at this time.
That doesn't make any sense.
Okay, well, I'm telling you the answer. That's our answer. We're doing the legal stuff first.
And such laws are typically for every other community that I've lived in that's had rental laws. The intent was for the safety of renters rather than, I don't know, harassment of people who rent out their house or rent a room out of their house or whatever. And it was my understanding from the past meeting that there are people in the village who have already been cited for violations to this law when it doesn't exist yet. And I
No,
was
those
wondering
people
if
that
that
were being
is,
cited were because they had illegal apartments.
Oh.
That was the meeting at the last meeting, and that didn't work out so well.
but you don't cite everyone who has an illegal apartment.
We cite anyone who gets a complaint, and when we receive a complaint, the village hall code goes to its back, or the building department, depending who's available.
And anyone can file a complaint about any illegal apartment in the village?
It happens all the time, every week, every other
And they
day.
all
we
get
had a
inspected
few.
and they all get cited and they all get fines. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments on the rental?
Question on the fines and fees, and you can answer it. Pretty much it says that the fines are for all expenses, professional expenses, whatever it may cost, plus 25% of the actual cost and expenses. So there's a 25% amount on top of what it costs us.
That's not that's not a court fine, that's if the village needs to take action to legalize
Administration fee.
a situation. So it would be the actual cost plus 25% administration fee, so that would cover the village clerk, the building inspector, or whatever else.
Oh, so all of that's not in the actual cost?
It's above the, it's the way that we, it's the actual, it's an estimate of the actual cost, but it's the administration cost of the village. It's not like the contractor cost, or the things that can be identified. It's our actual cost in the village that we can't identify because there's no invoicing, because it's personnel costs. It's the village clerk, the village building inspector, my cost if I don't bill it separately, things like that.
Mm-hmm. And that's the standard and usual fee for all the...
Yes.
So Port Jeff will charge that.
I don't know what Port Jeff does, but this is common, that is common, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is, I know it's came a lot that came from Hatfield, so.
The nanny village.
Other comments?
Yes, well, I didn't comment on the rental regulation. I'd like to know if we have access to a copy of the law that was revised. I haven't seen it. So how can we comment when we don't know what's in it? It's not out here, so I don't know that you can vote on something that doesn't have access to the public, because we can't comment on it. Oh, that's another. So I would ask, since it wasn't made available, that we table it till next time, because we haven't had time to read it. Well, it wasn't available.
I thought that was already out.
Well, sorry, it wasn't. But we haven't had time to read it and review it.
Do I have a motion to table?
Good job. I got one. Here, Tiffany.
Thank you. I thought I was just missing it.
Okay, public hearing for chapter.
So there's no more comments on the rental?
It's open. Well, you can comment, I guess. Say you want to comment now, Tommy, because you may not be
Can I make a
here.
comment tonight?
Wait till they're done.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Make your comment, Tommy. Make your comments, because you may not make the next meeting.
Does anybody else need to
My name is Tom Lonigan, 59 Chestnut in Poquott. I'd like to make a comment about the rental permit. I currently have 2 rental properties in the town of Brookhaven that I have to comply with rental permits for currently. The village of Poquott is in the town of Brookhaven. So my feeling is, we don't really have to reinvent the wheel if you want to have a rental permit policy in place. There's already one for the town of Brookhaven. That being said, I am not in favor of rental permit policy. I feel like the town of Brookhaven, we deal with thousands and thousands of homes. So in those cases, it was under the guise of Operation Fire Safety that they got it started around the year 2000. Part of it was because there were certain towns in the village of Brookhaven, i.e. Mastic, Shirley, Mastic Beach, where they had like little slum areas. So in order to kind of like tighten up these neighborhoods, they enacted these laws under Operation Fire Safety. The only ones in the town of Brookhaven that aren't required to have rental permit applications in place is Fire Island, which I don't understand. Fire does not discriminate. But Fire Island doesn't have to have one. And it's in the town of Brookhaven. We're a small village, right? I feel like between the people in our village, we should be able to police ourselves. If I have an issue with this young lady here, and she's my neighbor, I'd like to deal with her. My feeling is that we should table this rental permit policy in place. Yeah, we've had a few incidents, but we shouldn't like go to the extreme enacting these permit policies, because my feeling is it's another layer of government. You know, it's more bureaucracy. And I feel like as a village, we should be able to handle it internally. My feeling is if we do have rental places in place in the village, maybe provide some sort of guidelines, fire safety guidelines, overcrowding guidelines, things like that. But table it with the notice that, hey, listen, people in the village, we don't have a rental permit policy in place right now. But if we screw up, it's coming. And then just, instead of reinventing the wheel, just go with the town of Brookhaven. It's already in place. It's been there since at least 2000. It's been tested, it's been litigated, and, you know, it's stood the test of time. So that's my feeling. I feel like, you know, we don't need more government. Less government. Let's police ourselves. We're only a few hundred homes. We're not thousands of homes like the village. I mean, like the town.
Thank you.
And that's what I have to say.
We have a motion to,
Thank you, Tommy.
chapter 23 rental. Really just open for the next meeting.
Can I make another additional comment?
Sure.
Just a quick one. With a rental permit application in the town of Brookhaven, which is currently in effect, when you submit your application, they check your CO. If you have a single-family residence, you better not have an accessory apartment or a basement apartment or renting out your garage. That rental permit that's in place strictly adheres to what it says on the certificate of occupancy. If it's a single-family residence, it better be rented only to a single family. And so, rather than keep opening up cans of worms, I'd say we just kind of shelf it, try to keep it in-house. And that's
Do I
it.
have a motion to keep the local, yeah,
Second.
okay. All right, public hearing for new village floor, chapter 120, property maintenance. Jeff, I think you've spoken about this multiple times. Would anybody like to make any comments?
Where is that?
Yeah, do we have that?
We don't have it. No.
No, it's not.
It's not,
We tabled it.
We
No,
just,
that's the
we didn't do
rental.
anything. Yeah, it was from the last meeting.
Open from the last meeting.
But there were changes.
Still by law, they have to have it.
You still have to have it, I believe. Available for people that weren't here last meeting.
It was it at the village hall?
No.
No, that was it.
No, it wasn't at the village hall.
When something should be voted on, it needs, if it's requested at the meeting, it needs to be
You
available.
have them right there.
But it needs to be available at the meeting. Is that what it is? The
Yeah.
property?
Are they
Okay,
there?
so that covers it.
Again, well, I'd like to get one and compare it.
Same one that was put out there 4 months ago.
Well, I don't know that.
Cindy Davis, Birchwood. At the last meeting when we discussed this, a lot of requests were made to make it that it was too vague, that it was arbitrary, and that there was no appeal process. There was no notice. All of a sudden, the letter would go out, and boom, you start getting fined. Now, you said, of course, you'll just go to court. That should be written in the law. You can't assume that if somebody starts getting fines, well, it doesn't say so in the law that you have to have notice, that you get to go to appeal it or get to discuss it with anybody. And I think that should be included in the law. Plus, I still think it's too subjective. Your taste is not the same as mine. And I don't think you should have the right to tell me whether I should have something in my yard or not. And I don't think anybody else does. It's a safety hazard, that's one thing. But not subjective just because I don't think it looks pretty. That's tough. I don't like my neighbor's yard. That's his property. I don't have to like it. As long as it's not unsafe or impinging on me, it's fine. And I don't think anybody else has the right to tell someone what their property should look like. But I would still like it written in that there's an appeal process before you start levying fines to everybody.
We send notice.
There's a notice.
Just so you know, we send notice.
There's a notice provision in the law, as long as it's not health and safety related.
We have.
And the other thing is that there's, the law reflects the state standards for, the things that define this. So it's the state, it's not the village standards that are vague. Whether they're vague or not, it's the New York State standards.
I just like to respond, and I'm going to try to make it short because I tried to get everything in with the last presentation of this particular poor Jeff. And it went on probably too long. The key points were, number one, there was already maintenance of property law in place. It's in the state codes, which are not really easily accessible. Two, we have had problems in the village, and we need to have our law on the books so that people know what essentially is the community standard, so that we never get to the point of fine. Number three, like any law, the law sets out what is expected, and the understanding is always that the judiciary, the court, is the one who then handles the disposition of that. And this is no different. So this law says this is what are the key points of that enormous state law that is important to Poquott. And the beginning of this law, frankly, came from complaints. It wasn't that, oh, it's one more law that the people up here are throwing out to the public. We have had complaints. Everybody is aware of that. And we've had unsafe conditions resulting in a fire. We have had terrible properties that have been complained upon by the immediate neighbors. And then people say, of course, the village, what do you need that for? Because they're not directly affected by it, I guess. But it is needed, and we now have the standard, and I can tell you that the threat of this, not the threat,
Right.
but the,
Right word.
the fact that we are going to be imminently passing this law resulted in the sale of one of the worst properties in the village. Directly, okay?
Oh, that's a
So
good
that-
quote.
So the reason that we have this law, like
That's
many
a good quote.
is that we have the
Suable in court.
opportunity to deal with extreme cases. And it really isn't different. But people have made it into a whole other thing. There are so many laws on the books in the criminal code that you wouldn't even want to bother going over. But you don't bother with it every day because in the extreme case, the police handle it. In our case, we have a code enforcement. They have the ability to then go and take you in violation of the code, and we then have a way of adjudicating that where it's not going to be unfair. The judge in our court is a resident, and he's more than happy to listen to the other side of the story. So, right away, people are saying, oh, it's going to, we don't like the way your paint job is or something like that. That has never happened, and that is not why we have the law. But again, it is no different from any other law, it's because we do need it in extreme cases, that's all I'm saying.
Can I just ask you, if you have New York State law, and you have these problems, why haven't you addressed them through the New York State law?
Were you at the Poquott meeting? Okay, well, anyway, the village, this New York State code
They
is
never
very
had me
extensive.
removed.
It covers urban, commercial, there's a lot in there. And it is not like with us where you go to the village website and you click on documents and records and you just prevent from where you are. It is a whole big deal, and most people have not accessed this code. Why? Because it's not user-friendly, it's not right there. We have a code, we have village codes. Why shouldn't we have our version of this law that says this is what the residents of the village would like? I just don't understand what the controversy is.
She's so
The New York
bored.
State code doesn't exist anymore.
No, I know. That's foilable, you know.
So you would have.
Judge
you would
told
have
me.
to know to look for the international code.
But we would follow basically what the state code was and international code is.
In some places, other places it doesn't.
You're allowed, they say you're allowed to, but you have to justify it.
Stronger than-
So, since we have the same law, the same statement, I'm gonna make the same comment as last time. But maybe this is slightly different. If I look at what happens in failure to maintain, it says that the building inspector or code enforcement officer essentially decides this problem. A notice is sent out. If it's not remedied, then there's notice shall identify the property, so on. In the event that the condition is not remedied, the Board of Trustees may adopt a resolution directing that the condition be remedied by the village and any cost associated. I missed the part about the court being involved. I missed the part about learning about whether this infraction actually violates community standards, because there's no chance for input. There's nothing in here as to say about the court. I guess the person who gets the fine could sue the village. Maybe that's the intent.
They are not fined, they are given a summons and they have to go to court.
It doesn't
Well, it
say
says,
that.
it doesn't say it goes to court.
It
There's
doesn't.
nothing,
It says you
there's
get a letter
nothing
and you
here
get a
about a
fine.
summons.
Do we need that literally written in the law?
We don't.
It's not, look in the laws. Most laws don't say if you don't comply with the law, here's what's gonna happen.
Right.
This is your arrest.
So how do you envision this working? So I have too much wood in a messy place, you can see it from the street. So the trustees adopt a resolution directing that the cost be remedied by the village and that any cost, including the administration fee, any legal, be charged, and be responsible to the owner, and the event the owner does not pay within 30 days, it goes in the tax bill, I guess, or something like that. So what's my expected response to that?
Let me tell you where that came from. We've had instances where, and one was my neighbor, where a pile of garbage was literally left at the property line, a pile of garbage left at the property line, and I think they just left or something like that. And there was nobody to give a summons to. The village mailed out a letter, and they were told to clean it up, and this was going back a few years, but ultimately the village cleaned it up and sent them a bill. And
So
normally,
the village did clean it up and send them the bill?
well,
Under the
contractor
existing, under
took it
the
away.
existing regulations, okay.
Yeah, but if you're talking about,
So why do we need?
if you, I don't even know if that was legal back then, because I don't even know what that
Oh.
was. But that's what that
Well,
was.
Proud of
Richard
it, yeah.
Dick's property.
Anyway, if
Now
you're
it's said his
talking about
neighbor.
the average homeowner who has some kind of a violation, usually the problem is that it's a complaint from the neighbor. That's what we've been getting. Okay? It starts with a complaint from the neighbor. Usually what happens is one of the code guys goes and says, hey, not for nothing, but can you do something about this? And that's just the way it is in our village. If the person does not comply or says, it's my property, I can do whatever the hell I feel like, they can get a summons. And then they can tell it to the judge.
So
And
when,
that's
so the fact of getting a summons means that there's a court date and that nothing in this will happen until after that court date?
usually, yes.
It doesn't say it in that
We don't
law.
have it, we don't have it in place yet, so.
Yeah, but this doesn't say that. This says you get the summons. If you don't do it, you get, the board of trustees adopting
What
a
would you want it to
resolution.
say?
It doesn't say,
What would you
based on the
like? Here he
summons, you
goes
go
with
to
his,
court. If you're judged guilty, then it comes back to the.
But that's, most laws don't say that.
Sure they do.
Look at any of our codes, they don't spell it all out. They say, this is the standard. If
Well,
you look
but-
at the state code, remember, we're all answerable to the state and now the international
But
code.
if you get a parking ticket, nothing happens after the parking ticket. You don't tow someone's car away if they don't pay,
Until they go to court.
if they don't pay their parking ticket with